BBI, and people are saying it's been a he say, she say kind of reportage. Let's be honest, let's be candid, and even if it was me broadcasting a particular story, please say it. Is it at 100%, 60%, 40% in terms of good? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think BBI was a great opportunity for the country that we as the media have just decided to lose out on it. One of the things that is important, it is, you know, when you have an opportunity to reset, to start again, to start over, it's always a great opportunity. So for me, when this whole story came up and all the skepticism, I was like, maybe it's an opportunity as a country to have a proper conversation. Mm-hmm. And I think that the media could have played a bigger role. I don't even want to give it a rating, but I want to say three things. Number one, the thing that has disappointed me is that we have fallen into the trap of the politicization of the process of the BBI. The BBI is a very critical document which has 9 points that we are supposed to be focusing on and unpacking. And what has happened is the politicians... It was
birthed through political intercourse.
Yes. But I think the media can choose to actually interrogate the issues. There are 9 issues there. But we are stuck at the political issues. And there are many more issues. So for example, there's the issue of safety and security, the issue of shared prosperity, the whole issue of devolution and how it has, you know, some analysis on how it's going. I think the media is not doing well enough in terms of getting deep into the issues. The second issue is, when I look at the rallies, I've watched the rally, the most disappointing one, of course, being the one in Kakamega, my hometown. That was pathetic. But watching the other rallies and trying to see how is the media reporting these issues. Again, these rallies are just being reported as political rallies, like the way you would report a political rally.
But these are political gatherings.
They are political gatherings, but I'm saying the media can decide to play the game differently and really start doing an analysis. For example, the people in Coast Province had a forum the day before the rally.
Yeah,
how was that forum reported? It wasn't.
It was mentioned that was about 2,000 to 3,000 delegates
people there,
from the region.
What were the issues that were discussed, and how did the media analyze those issues? It was not done because the media was focusing on the rally the next day. So we missed an opportunity to tell the narrative of what the Coast people wanted. They spent a whole day there discussing their issues, but the media didn't go there. So I personally feel that there's a missed opportunity there,
yes.
And that perhaps now that we have the next one going in Kitui, maybe we can correct the way we handle, because we should not drive the narrative that the politicians are driving. The media should be talking about the real issues that the Kenyans want to be seen, to see in the BBI. So bringing out the voice of Wanjiku, bringing out the voice of the locals, what do they want to see? Because people are spending hours on spending time to identify, like for example, forget about the people in Western, they didn't do it, but the Mombasa people, the Coast people sat down and said, these are the issues that we'd like discussed. So until Kingi came and gave that list, Governor Kingi came and gave the list, we hadn't been informed about what the Coast people are thinking, and I think for me that's the missed opportunity.
All right, Eliud?
Where are the copies of the BBI report? They said they'll distribute. Who is in charge of BBI? How are these delegates who we hear are meeting ahead of the rally? How are they being selected? What I'm getting from this, it appears as there is already a predetermined destination where this process is headed to. So what we're having is an arranged, right, events that will end up at a certain, destination. So, and we cannot, they say Kenyans have a very short memory. For instance, the proposals we are seeing in this BBI are not different from what we had in the Bomas draft. The 14 regions, well, Bomas had proposed the parliamentary system. Now they are proposing a prime minister. Now they want a powerful prime minister. These are the issues I think we should be doing that. For instance, the best way we can do this is to have people who have been through this constitutional review process.
Yeah.
What did they do in 2005? What did they do in 2010? what they think about this. I think Yashpal Guy and Julie Cottrell Guy have done a lot of work in this regard. But are we giving them enough space? Are we giving them that platform? What we are seeing
is, I mean, you're from the
and they have done that. I mean, they have the Katiba column. They have done that a very good article.
Generally, though.
Yeah. So I mean, very good. I mean, it's really well in the Star. but what we are losing, as she said, are the issues. What are these issues, and how then are you going to address them? They're saying there's a review. I don't see a review. If it is going back to get more opinions of the opinions that we already got, then the first I think meetings were better managed and there was some structure. We don't have a structure in this BBI.
Okay.
So even when journalists want to follow up, right, the constitutional review process they went to Kilifi, they went to Bomas, I mean, they went to Naivasha, to Elementator. There was a structured process.
Yes.
The committee of experts had its own responsibility, the MPs had, but this is something that, for instance, the committee that was gazetted, what its role, I have not seen them. What we are seeing is Raila, is Ruto, and the drama around them. So I think maybe we are losing that.
You sound more like a reader or audience as a sub-editor. Someone might say, my goodness, you're the one who should be giving me those answers.
I mean, I'm not just saying about me, it's about the general coverage. Yeah, general coverage, yes.
All right. And Macharia, if you probably saw that piece, I know you're from the Star, but you also read the Daily Nation. In the Tuesday piece, he had a 10-point recommendation that could get us out of the rut.
Yes.
And that was... And sometimes, Macharia, we're told, you're taking Tanga side, Kieleweke side, but when you write a piece like yours, where you actually do call this process out for what it is, a vehicle to 2022, still not enough.
There's only so much some of us can do. But I think we do owe it to ourselves, to our readers, to our nation, to try and set the agenda and point things in a certain direction and get people thinking. I mean, okay, I can't argue with the fact that BBI is a political process, birthed by politicians, driven by politicians. But it is also what I might call a constitutional moment. As important, a referendum, or it would be as important as the last general election. BBI would be as important as the steps leading up to a new constitution in 2010. And even as we report the politics, we should be giving as much room to highlighting those issues which it is meant to address and asking ourselves questions whether they are being addressed. I don't remember the last time I saw Nation or Standard or the Star simply list that, even without comment, simply list that 9-point agenda, just to remind Kenyans that, hey guys, as guys go for road shows in Kakamega,
there was that pull-out that we were criticized about.
Mombasa, wherever,
pull-out at the Bomas.
This is what this thing ought to be focusing on. And beyond that, it is time also to start taking positions. In the run-up to the constitutional review process, or during the Nation took a position, the Standard took a position. Okay, it was risky because of the political dynamics and the fact that even that thing was driven by politicians. But a point comes and we have to say, as Nation or Standard or Star, this is our stand on these 9 points. This is what we think should take priority, what is good for Kenya. Just simply regurgitating what everybody is saying without providing direction, it basically means that we are caught up in that game of those rallies which are giving us more heat than light.
Yes. And tell me your response as you listen to this tweet. Kenyan Dream, you say, every time you give the audience to tribal clowns, scheming to gain relevance through the BBI scam, you insult Kenyans. You prove to us that you don't know your powers in setting the agenda and mood of the nation. Of all the necessary things you could highlight on the positive and negatives, you choose BBI. What's your response? With the hat of an editor and the hat of a political analyst.
And a politician.
And a politician, yes.
I'm lucky to have all those hats.
Yes.
You see, I think either way, as an editor or as a newspaper or as a media house, you are damned. Because you present views of a certain type, you're going to be condemned. You block out those views, you're still going to be condemned. I think the public needs to appreciate that the space of the media is universal, is public, is for everybody. And the media owes the public that openness, that everybody can actually play in this space. Now that is the challenge that the media has to live up to. Whether it's doing that effectively, I cannot judge. But there appears opportunities that are being given to other people and others not being offered the same opportunities, or there is no diversity of opinions, different shades of opinion, or even characters appearing in our media houses, which is a matter that concerns me. I mean, are we spreading broad enough to get everybody who can probably have a view coming on board in our newspapers, on our TV stations, on radio stations? That is a big issue. I don't want to be the one dominating newspaper and TV airtime. I want to see other people also come and argue their points of view.
Yes.
So I think to that extent, I can fault the media for not opening their door wide enough to allow even people who are not prominent or well-known, so that they can also articulate their views. That extent, yes. But the bashing of the media has become fashionable, if you ask me. Because there's only so much that the media can do. And the media has done a lot. With regard to the BBI, for example, what is the issue? There are two issues here. One is the issue of process of that BBI. The second one is the issue of content of the report. What is it that the media houses or journalists or journalism has not asked of the public or the politicians who are involved in this thing? Macharia has raised, columns have been written, newspapers, commentaries have been done, reports have been written, quoting critics of this process and the content. You can't sing the same song every day. You also become it becomes tedious. So the media has done its part. What is left is for the people themselves to take up their responsibility and act in their interest and in the interest of the nation. You see, and that's where I think, because, I sympathize with the media, because we raise all these issues, but the people who are hearing these issues have decided not to do anything about them. People have said, let the steering committee do its job. How many times should the media say that?
Yes.
The people who appoint or the politicians in charge of this process should say, yes, let's listen to this, it makes sense. If they decided they don't want to listen to it, it's not the media to force people.
Yes.
The media reports and the news is dynamic. We can't ignore people who have gathered in Mombasa who are causing a phenomenon and go for something that is low-key. That is not how news is prioritized.
Yes.
What shouts, you pick it up, and then look what is underneath. But we're being told, ignore the shouting, go for the quiet. No, the quiet people should also shout. Let's hear all of them. That's how I would tell them. But you can't sit back and say, why are you not reporting about us? But what are you doing that we can report about you?
Yes.
I'll just say, we have
a
tweet here from Ndongo Wainaina. What do I call him? He's a civil society guy. Media has succeeded in diminishing plurality of voices and ideas. This has hamstrung the country into motionless political rut. There are so many issues on BBI, but there is only one narrative, either for or against. Any other voice has been shut down. And I replied to him even before I came here because I seen it earlier.
Yes.
I'm sure Mark Masai will be happy to have you on a press pass.
Yes.
And let's do that. There are people who feel they have something to say, and they feel that the media is not giving them an opportunity. Let's have them in our studios. Already they are all over the places on the opinion pieces and columns. But let's give them as much space as possible. But sometimes people whine and argue, and sometimes I wonder, do they actually read what is in our newspapers?
Yes.
Do they actually watch our TV stations? Because if they're paying attention, maybe they would not be complaining. I've heard some of those same people say, I don't watch Kenyan newspapers. I don't watch Kenyan TV. It's not worth it. I don't read Kenyan newspapers. I only read international newspapers. And at the same time, how do you argue with a person like that?
Yes. But they say, they don't feel that you're relevant to them, whatever you put out.
How do they know we are not relevant if they're not reading?
Okay. To you, Sylvia.
Yeah, so
and that balancing act.
I think it's always good to hold up a mirror. I think you can only improve if you can look at yourself and see, what is really going wrong. And I think I do commend the fact that, yes, the media has done quite a lot.
Yes.
But this report was launched back in November. And if you go on the streets of Nairobi, you go in the streets of Kitale, you go in the streets of Mombasa and ask an ordinary Kenyan, what do they know about BBI? I challenge any media house to try it and see what you'll get out of it. The fact of the matter is that the understanding and awareness about the content of this report is still very low. The ordinary citizen thinks it's a battle between the Kileweke versus Tanga guys. They actually don't know that there are critical issues that are raised in the report. And if any of the critical issues are being upsounded, like the issue of corruption, it's because of a political agenda. So I think the media needs to ask itself, then, if people are not reading, how do we make this interesting enough? Because your role is to ensure that if you're sending a message, the messenger, the person receiving the message is actually getting the message. So it's a challenge. I want to say a very important thing.
Yeah. You want to challenge what she said?
I was looking at the data. Wait, Makani, give me a minute. I was looking at the data of the number of people who participated in the BBI process according to the BBI report. Let me just give you the data. 7,000 citizens actually presented in some form to the BBI committee. Among them were 400 elected leaders, 123 individuals who represented major institutions, like a major institution making maybe a civil society organization making a presentation. There are 261 individuals who sent memorandums and 755 citizens who sent written submissions, which means actually quite a number of Kenyans participated in the process.
Yeah.
However, these voices were not heard. What I'm trying to say is that even as the presentations were going on, they give us so much about what's happening in Bunge. You guys give us what's happening in Bunge. When a rally like the one that happened in Mombasa is, you go live for so many hours. But how come we did not see these people?
Make some noise, he says.
Yes, how come we didn't see these people? As these people were presenting to the BBI committee team as they went around the country, why didn't we see these voices? Why didn't we hear what they had to say? Why do we have to know that 7,000 citizens presented in the report? But through the process, I'm trying to imagine 7,000 is quite a lot of people. How come we didn't hear them? And why didn't the media report about this?
I want to agree with Sylvia. Actually, I wasn't to challenge, I was to just buttress what she's saying.
Okay.
Which is that the problem and the major weakness of our media is inability to follow processes.
Yes.
Deliberations. That you can send a reporter to City Hall or KICC and proceedings of a certain nature going on, and they'll report what transpired there.
Yes.
Apart from just what the main leaders or guests said and went. The deliberations, soon as they're finished, of course we leave. But you see, that deprives us and the public of the wealth or the content that transpires after the departure of the chief guests.
Yes.
That's what Sylvia is talking about.
Yes.
And I've seen that. I was chairing a task force, even of issues that affect us as the media. But the media itself could not even sit in and even address and articulate its own issues. They waited for the report. I mean, that is a serious weakness on our part, we must admit.
Okay.
So, but secondly, before I finish, now post facto, the report was presented by the task force to the principals, and they mentioned that 7,000 people presented the memoranda and so forth. I have not seen any media house that has ventured to find out who are these people who presented, what did they submit, were those things they submitted in the final report, or as we say, the report was treated elsewhere and a final copy brought, and we can't help the public to tell. So that's a big problem. And I think that if we went out and sought out those submissions, we'd actually get the people who submitted and have additional interviews with them to add value to the final report. So that is still work to be done.
Yes, Mashari, real quick, and then
I remember during the the public hearings on BBI, I challenged some of my media colleagues that I think our readers and viewers need to have those hearings religiously covered, given prime space, live coverage, plenty of space in the newspapers, because there's something important happening.
Can you review those days?
And our readers are not seeing it.
Yes.
But I also challenged the BBI Secretariat. You guys, where are these? You're telling us you're receiving all these memoranda.
Yes.
Where are they? As a journalist, where can I get them? Yes. Can I get the hard copy? Can you put them on your website as they come in so that we can call them from there? No response. Up to today, when they're telling us they have 7,000 presentations, go to the website, 0. Not even 1.
It is true. I want to underscore what Marshall is
not
saying.
Even 1.
Even basic things. You know, I think
even today, we're taking it as if it is now the work of the media to publicize the output of the task force.
It's its business.
That is their business. Yes, they should be doing it. We can do it because it is a public interest thing.
Yes.
But the ultimate responsibility is theirs.
Right.
And here I am addressing. He's called what?
Paul Mwangi
and
Martin Kimani.
And Martin Kimani.
Yes.
The ultimate responsibility.
And those two gentlemen, sorry to say this on TV, but even, I mean, I've known them before they even became secretaries or conveners. But since they took up the office, they all of a sudden went into secrecy, as if they are colluding and conspiring against the public. Yet they are supposed to be doing these things in our public interest.
Open,
so when you ask for information from the steering committee or the BBI committee, nobody is ever speaking. Why aren't those guys free to come on these TV stations and tell us what the BBI team is doing, what they're planning to, you know, diffuse all these speculation and conspiratorial theories
around it?
Nobody wants to do it.
Yes.
How are we working as a country? The Constitution calls us to public participation.
Right.
Why is it that public participation has become #1 enemy in this country?
Yes, before just something he had said. He had mentioned about his task force on government communications. Yes, it is true that we did not cover it adequately in terms of its hearings, and he did present his report to the Minister for the Cabinet Secretary for Information and Communications. Yes. Up to now, as far as I know, that report is top secret. It has not been made public. It has not been made public. Yes. I don't know what the Cabinet Secretary did with it.
Yes.
It was not given to the media, and we're talking about, and it's a report on a task force on government communications. I mean, what a communications fail that is.
The Cabinet Secretary said he received the report. It was for his consumption, processing, and action. So he said he's taking it fast to cabinet, I mean, of course, to the president to review what is in there and then act or decide what to do with the report. Well, Mashara is right. Maybe it's taken a while for feedback. But in terms of process, perhaps that was the thing to do. But
okay, you know. So Elliot, we give an opportunity to Elliot. Yeah.
Mark, just to respond to Makalino, it's not the first task force report that has not been made public. Many haven't, so I won't be surprised. But
this particular one is communications.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just respond to, Makali said there's only how much media can do. She says there were 7,000 people who submitted. I think correspondents were in those platform, and they covered that. We could not have covered everyone, but even individuals who made those presentations were covered. And actually, I would say, even remember when the 9-point agenda was given, it's the media that kept asking, what is BBI? What is this building, initiative? What is it? What is BBI? I think, and the contents of that report, media continued to push for it until, I think, the 9-point agenda that was done, but we wanted to know what is behind that. But I would think the reason why we have not had, especially a good follow-up with the review, is the chaos that I talked about. Like, now, what are you following up on? How do they even develop these recommendations that they come and read on these rallies? So I think the chaos and the lack of arrangements of us or framework on how this BBI thing is being handled is even, trickled down even to how media covers this.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we need to close, but I need to ask something that he brought up. Are we mature enough? Are we ready to take a position and say BBI is a way to go? or it has one or two things to work on, or BBI is rubbish as a media house. Perhaps not in those words, but you don't follow. Take a position on this. Are we ready for that? And should that be the way?
I totally agree with Guy, though, that we needed, media houses now have to get to a point where they take a stand. And there's one critical issue that I wanted to respond to before talking about that issue. This is what Makali talked about, the fact that the secretariat, the BBI secretariat, has really also failed. Because one of the things, I wrote a post about what they needed to do immediately after the BBI was launched. The first thing they needed to do is ensure that the document is in a format that is accessible to all Kenyans, which means that the document needed to be translated into as many languages as possible so that the ordinary Kenyan can understand. What are we talking about if you don't understand what? And some of these words are very difficult. Like if you think of a word like shared prosperity, how does my mother in the village understand what shared prosperity is unless you put it in a language that she can understand? So they needed to have, the Secretariat needed to come up with a civic education agenda. This is not a big deal. They could have gone to any donor. If they had gone to DFID or any other person, possibly they would have gotten funding to support that civic education, because Kenyans need to understand what is in the document before we can even debate and make a decision. So even as we are asking the media to take a stand, first and foremost, we need to get the ordinary citizen to understand. So what I expected to see on my part was a very serious partnership between BBI Secretariat and, you know, the vernacular radio stations. So that people are going out and explaining the document to the community that of the language you speak. So if it's the Maasai, for example, we would have programs being aired on Ma Radio and other radio stations trying to unpack the whole issue. Yeah, because there's no point of going around for a second round of, they're not going for a second round of hearings, and you haven't even explained to the ordinary Kenyan what this document means and why it is critical and why we must be interested in it as a community. So my thinking is that it is good for the media to take a stand, but first things first. Let's unpack this document for the ordinary citizen. Let's go out through the vernacular. Now there's a radio station almost for every community. Make sure that the document is translated and the critical messaging given to the community so that they can understand how to engage with the document. You can't engage with a document that you don't understand.
You don't understand in the first place. Eliud Kibi, the Star, ready for that kind of situation? We take a position on the BBI?
Well, I'll not speak
You can't speak for your boss, yes, but generally,
I would say, well, I agree. Actually, that's a huge challenge to, I think, as she said, every media house, I think, has, I mean, a number of vernacular radio stations. But it's hot, it will get hotter. So I think still we need to first explain to people, like Mashinani, people don't know what BBI is. Yeah, they don't. Like, what is it? They will say it's for this person to get to power, it's to cut this guy to size. I mean, and if we take, I think, position now, I think it's because I think this thing will go on and on until 2021. I mean, so I think it's too, I agree with Mashari, we need to take a position, but I think it's too early.
Does it go against that, you know, cardinal rule of objectivity?
No. I think you cannot have a false balance in some of these things. If something is right, it is right. If you believe this is the way to go, then come out and say it. Because if we're not able to take a position, so we are not mature enough to take a position, then we don't deserve to be Kenyan media. We might as well go and grow potatoes or something else. Because what are we for? We are to set the agenda. Agenda setting, educating people, informing people.
Even if it means some regions will not buy the paper because we'll say
that is the challenge we faced in 2010 on covering the Constitution. And we said we can rise above that. And if we take a position, it will be because we can explain to our readers why we have taken that position, not because it is the Ruto position or the Raila position or the Uhuru position or anybody else's position, but what is good for the country.
But Senior, as simple as that. What are we taking a position on? We have not even finished on this review.
But no, we don't have to wait for which review? The rallies. That is it. Ours would be to, if that document is being reviewed and it is going to be amended, then we can take a position by which we can influence the eventual outcome. If we wait until it is redrafted, it will be too late. We'll have missed the boat.
Okay.
See,
all right, we're out of time, but you have the last say.
The whole problem, what Eliud is asking is the big problem. Because what is BBI? Is BBI the initiative or BBI the report?
Yes.
That thing needs to be unpacked. In this country today, when you say BBI, it has acquired the meaning of a certain political affiliation or grouping.
And now nobody can stop radio.
So either you are for or against, yet everybody has said they agree with the initiative, the BBI initiative.
Yes.
They may not agree with the report.
Yeah.
That's the distinction we need to make.
But can we take a position? Do you think
I think so, and I think as a newspaper, every media house has a soul, and that soul is the editorial board.
Yes.
And it needs to speak and decide in the national interest, that which is what guides us.
Right.
Yeah.
And have we called them out adequately when it's, let's say, this is BS? Have we called them out?
I think opportunity has not arisen.
Personally, I have, but
Yes.
I am not the Nation. I had my page in the Nation, and I dismissed most of that report as recommendations as BS.
Yes.
But I think people want to hear what is the Nation telling them as an institution.
And I think it's important, and I think the opportunity is coming when media houses ought to take a position or a stand, and I expect that to be the case, because we must define what is good for the country and identify with it, regardless of your ownership.
And whether we will lose out on some copies being sold in one area or another.
Correct.
All right. David Makali, Macharia Gaido, Eliud Kibi, thank you very much for advertising your paper. I'll give you the invoice after this. And Sylvia Muchuli, thank you for your time and thoughts on Press Pass. Much appreciated online, given the feedback. Thank you for speaking candidly to us. We didn't speak about locusts. We didn't speak about coronavirus, which we wanted to. But we will give ample time to it.